It's great to be here. And thank you for Funding the Commons, for inviting us and being part of this very forefronting sort of platform here. First of all, I would like to perhaps introduce the School of Global Studies, which is based at Thammasat University. We're a fairly new faculty. We're 13 years old, but we've got a bachelor's degree in global studies and social entrepreneurship. We also have an MA and a PhD in social innovation and sustainability, and some of our faculties and our students are here today. So I'm going to take this as more of rather sort of a work-in-progress research report for you, because I've been commissioned to work with 10 different countries in the region, working with what is known as SOMSWAT, which is the Senior Official Meetings and Social Welfare and Development Committee of the governments of the 10 different countries of ASEAN, in terms of looking at the vulnerabilities and looking at how Fourth Industrial Revolution has its impact on the most vulnerable groups. So whilst the deck is coming up, hopefully. Okay, no problem. So perhaps I think what I want to do here is tell you why we've actually embarked on this research in the first place. And one of the reasons is because there's so much opportunities and potentials for Fourth Industrial Revolution. I don't know if this is the right crowd to be talking about the Fourth Industrial Revolution, because basically it means everything, all technology, Internet of Things, AI, augmented reality, virtual reality, all those things about automation. So technological advancements is what is encapsulated in what is known as Fourth Industrial Revolution. In any case, we've embarked on this project because amidst all of these potentials and opportunities, we recognize that there are definitely potential risks and harms and those who are left behind in this sort of journey of advancements. So this juxtaposition is quite critical within the region itself, just because we see so many people falling back and falling behind. I'll probably share some findings, but like I said, it's still work in progress. We still have a validation workshop where we have to go through, and that is basically bringing our stakeholders in to validate the points that we're making in the research itself. This particular research is probably very preemptive of the Fifth Industrial Revolution, and as you know, it's very theoretical now. The Fifth Industrial Revolution is more about the harmonious relationship between humans, technology, and their environment. Right? So this is something that whilst we are conducting this particular research, we recognize that it's not just about the presence of these technologies, but how it's interpreted, how it's used, how it's applied, that's going to be making a difference to our society. I think there's a real problem, so I'm just going to go back to the conventional sort of mode and refer to my notes here. Basically, this is going to be more about taking you to the macro level, taking you into to the perspectives of what is actually quite unprecedented in the sense that when you have all these opportunities, what actually happens is that, as our previous speaker has actually spoken, there are those who are left with a lot of risk, because when we talk about vulnerabilities, it's something that is very transient. It goes beyond boundaries. But even in my endeavor to work with the government here, they were very insistent that we have to prescribe what vulnerability is. And as you know, vulnerability is very contextualized within the region. You have countries being at different levels of development. You have countries embarking on, a different sort of population sort of landscape as well. So countries such as Thailand, such as Singapore, were in the forefront of engaging in a very aging population, right? Going to the point of super age pretty soon. 2030, 1/4 of Singaporean population will be in their 60s, right? So this is something that is very critical. But you have, on the other hand, countries such as Cambodia, the Philippines, Indonesia, where the surge of those who are actually in their active youth, you have more of the younger population engaging in technology, more births happening in those countries. So obviously the vulnerabilities and the context of vulnerability is very, very different here. So this in itself is actually playing, a very critical role in how we configure, right, the vulnerabilities, which is sometimes often thought of as being just about the digital divide, right? When we talk about, for example, sorry, I'm just trying to move you forward with the PowerPoint, but it's not happening, is it? Sorry. Oh, okay. Sorry about the interruption. So this is us navigating technology in itself. Okay, thank you so much. So just bringing you up to date. So when I was talking about how vulnerabilities have to be contextualized, you can see that, these are the sort of groupings that we have within the different countries. But in our research itself, we're actually primed to talk about children, youth, elderly population, and people with disability. And obviously you see, people in the informal sector being part of that vulnerability, migrant workers, even women as being categorized. But we are sort of, and I think this is probably the caveat of working at the sort of more public sector sort of level here. When we have to prescribe some sort of research parameters, I think it's unfortunate, but we did have to sort of mention that in our research, that vulnerabilities do spread and move forward and move over the boundaries of at different levels. I was just going up about saying that the digital divide in ASEAN is obviously there, but what we found in this research is that it's not really. And I think the points that I'm going to be making sort of resonate with what you already know as well, but it is rather a confirmation for us, and that is, it is not just about access. It's not just about access or having that technology. Most of the time, what we found within this research is that it is about digital literacy. Some children, for example, having access to computers, having access to digital devices, do not have the protection, do not know how to use it effectively or efficiently, right? And so this is probably one of the poignant things that we're going to be making in terms of our expression or our communication to the government, and that is, it is about the nuances that surround that digital divide, even access in terms of language, even access in terms of cultural sensitivity. These are things that need to be configured when we talk about digital divide, not just about the separations of somebody living in the rural setting and not having access to a certain device. No, it's not only about that physical sort of what you see on the surface level of divide. So this is one important aspect about what we have and what we see. And usually, the nuances that have been the repercussions of digital divide actually is associated with economic aspects. You do see people wanting or being incentivized economically to be in the digital mode because they want money, they want to have an earning, and they are engaging in certain sort of aspects of trade. But that actually renders itself into all these different forms of exploitations, further risk, further vulnerabilities, right? And so you see, for example, platform workers willing and wanting to engage in being, gig workers, right? But because of that, they are actually putting themselves in the informal sector of society and of the economy. And for that reason, the repercussions is that when you become, and as Thailand is, there's about 70% of informal workers in the labor market in itself. That speaks a lot about what they're going to be experiencing in terms of their own social protection, right? Not having anything to fall back on when there's health or when there's any repercussions. So being in the informal sector, a woman actually, embarking on these sort of online sort of engagement and then end up being, for example, online sex platform workers, right? So this is something that is actually making us really critical that the journey to which one takes in terms of going and engaging with the digital sort of device and means is actually leading to what is known as adverse digital incorporation. And I think this is something that is very critical in the region itself. This I've mentioned already, that you do see variations in different countries as to what's happening in terms of the vulnerabilities present. And this, the demographic change in itself does speak volume, because that means government and policies have to actually react and read what is happening in their own country, right? And they cannot just give some sort of template as to what needs to be done, but look uniquely, specifically at the situation itself. So for children as one of the primary groups in terms of our study, we do see online exploitations. We see that the skills are not enhanced to the level where they're able to actually embrace that learning that they need, right? I probably won't be able to go into all details because we've actually worked with 10 national consultants going into each country's program in terms of what's, the available program there in each country. But at the same time, we do see gaps in the different sort of government policies. In terms of elderly people, it's a different context and a different kind of problem. It is more about digital exclusion. It is more about societal isolation, not being able to keep up with whatever is being used in terms of technology in order to advance the social and economic levels of that country. And in terms of people with disability, it is more of the infrastructure. It's the availability of not having the right structure, not having the right infrastructure in place to help and incorporate them in order for them to actually empower themselves in their work or in their profession. So these are the different kinds of nuances that you see in the different kinds of vulnerabilities that do exist. Right, so I think as you see, the research itself talks about several scopes of challenges, and we see that, like I've mentioned earlier, the point is that it is associated a lot with vulnerabilities that are not prescribed, things that we need to think beyond, the level of just seeing it at the surface level. And I think at this point, you do see, for example, what was being shared with our previous speaker in terms of potential policies, potential programs, potential activities that could benefit the vulnerable groups. Migrant workers being one, for example, many countries trying to up-level the skill sets of children and all that. Having said that, you do see all these specific programs, and our speaker on DEPA actually also mentioned what they're doing in Thailand as well. And this is happening in different countries. But the caveat here is that you do see real changes happening. And I think that is, at the same time, what is giving us hope as to why technology is also benefiting those who are dealing with problems in terms of their vulnerabilities and the risk that they actually face. Things like telemedicine, which is really making an imprint on how medicine and healthcare is actually going into the different communities and villages. So these are some of the things. In the forefront of things, you will see AI happening more so, more pervasive, and this is already seen in different works of, say, for example, Equitech and also other international organizations that are integrating these technologies inside into their works. So to harness 4IR's potential and mitigate its challenges, we want to make sure that there is access, but like I said, not access per se, but just understanding the nuance of that access as well, that there is digital literacy combined with that access, providing learning opportunities for the workforce to adapt to changing requirements, customizing the contents that's available, the application that's available at the digital level, so that they are culturally and linguistically appropriate. Some of the findings that we've actually embarked on in the research so far. So this is, in the overall sense of things, I think it's very important that we have an actual understanding of the impacts and the opportunities. And this is probably just a very sort of it's at the initial stage of us doing this research, but hopefully this research is going to bring forth more research in terms of what are the details that we need to work towards. This is what is actually envisioned in terms of the ASEAN Secretariat, in terms of what they want, that 4IR offers the opportunity for the people to grow better connected, to help economies grow, become more competitive, empower ASEAN citizens to improve their livelihoods through digitalization, the provision of basic social services, and help social decarbonize to meet sustainable development change confronting the region. I would say that having said all this, I think the importance of contextualization is very key here. And I think at the end of the day, seeing the potentials and the harms and contextualizing the nuance of it is very key. Social protection, social intervention is probably the entry point here. And I think this is more about how technology advances, but at the same time, I think it's very important to also think about those who are left behind, who do not have other choices, who are met with vulnerabilities when the others advance and move forward. So with that note, thank you very much. Thank you.